On this episode of ResiWeek, Hull Technologies shows work from home kits, company culture, and audio advice live. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 330, Persnickety Households.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Crestron.
Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by three of my good friends. First, we have Mr. Jason Knott. He is the Chief Content Officer at CE Pro. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thank you for being here. Then we have Amanda Wildman. She is the co-owner of True Media Home. How you doing, Amanda?
I am doing great. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have Scott Noonan. He is the CEO of Audio Advice out of North Carolina. How you doing, Scott?
Doing great. Thanks, Matt.
We're going to do our best not to get my name and your name confused. Amanda has already done, as we throw her under the bus right off at the start. All right. Well, let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from Residential Systems. Hull Technologies is going to showcase a work-from-home kit and a whole lot more at InfoComm 2022. That's taking place in less than 2 weeks from when you're hearing this episode. At the Hull Technologies booth, they're going to have a bunch of new products that are all shipping, but the one we're going to focus on right now is their work-from-home kit. That includes a docking station, a speaker hub, and a personal 4K camera to hopefully eliminate the common AV issues that happen with most laptop devices to help end users look and sound their best. That's the end of my promo. Jason, this is something that the InfoComm community has kind of latched onto, but not super heavy. We're hearing more from some of the tech managers and the end users that show up to InfoComm who are excited or a little bit more excited about the work from home kit type products that hit the show floor. Is this move by Hull to really focus on a work from home kit? Is this a nod to the ever growing crossover integration market where, again, there's a ton of residential dealers that are finally going to InfoComm and getting information like this to help their clients?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We did see a drop in the percentage of commercial business from the typical integrator when COVID hit, when the corporate market really kind of fell to pieces there. And so you see a lot of commercial integrators at that moment who shunned doing residential because the projects are too small. Mm-hmm. They weren't really skilled in customer service to be able to deal with, persnickety heads of households and those sorts of things that they would have to deal with on the resi side. So we saw, I think, more commercial guys moving into the resi space during COVID. And now that the commercial market is moving back, I see residential guys obviously maintaining that. Now, the one thing that I find curious is a lot of the guys that I spoke with on the work from home have had success with the C-suite executive with a home office environment. But once they got past that top execs, they were not seeing any penetration. And I think a lot of companies were just letting their employees kind of fend for themselves with whatever their setups were. So it'll be interesting to see how much there is at that top end of the market here, which is where I think these things are targeted.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we've seen too, and we've talked about a lot on the show, that it's C-suite only. Amanda, is there a way that we can leverage these kits and products like this to really continue to go after the C-suite, but even some of the exec levels that aren't necessarily, the middle managers who are working from home and need stuff because they're on meetings all day long too?
So I think you're definitely going to see some of that. We're getting asked those kind of questions all the time, C-suite executives, but also just employees. I think some of them are getting a budget where either they can have it at the office or they can use that budget towards home. So I think it's going to depend on where it comes out exactly in price point, how easy is it to set up, or are they going to have to work with an integrator to set it up? And I think you're forgetting some of the market too of during COVID, there were a lot of like schools and moms groups that cropped up and popped up, and church groups that popped up and different things like that. So people might be more willing to put one in their home if they're like, hey, I want to be future proofed, or I want to be ready so that if my kids say there's a resurgence or something going on this fall, at least we're prepared with one computer or one kind of like station set up in the house, where if we've got to do the school from home, or if we have to do like our church meetings from home, or mom groups, or, you know, a lot of people on social media. I mean, we saw a lot of, I think, the economy change and a lot of what people want change. So I think people are looking for a solution that if we can figure out how to cater to that audience, introduce it to that audience, let them know that we have a solution for that, I think that there is a market for that, definitely.
Yeah, I like that. Scott, you've got 2 different showrooms out there in North Carolina. Are you two, and maybe you are, I probably should have prefaced this ahead of time. Is this something that you see enough potential that like you would dedicate show floor space in your 2 locations, so that when people come in and they're doing a 2-channel demo or they're doing a home theater demo, they can also do a work from home demo? Or is the market still so finite that it's not worth giving up the valuable real estate?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in our showrooms, you know, we have sort of mini homes, and we actually are building out right now one area that's an office in those homes, and we'll have powered speakers in them and things like that. What I think is interesting about this space is, and you all probably know this, like over the past couple of years, you couldn't get a Logitech camera, right? The way people saw this, everyone bought the Logitech cameras, the Brios like were sold out all the time, and the Blue Yetis were sold out all the time. And so the C-suites all got, you know, I'm using this metaphorically, they all got the, you know, Blue Yetis, and they all got the Logitech Brios. And once they did that, everyone else was trying to find a closed room. I think it's going to be a fragmented market. So in other words, what we see is, a CEO says, hey, what I really want is I want great internet connectivity. I can't be dropping in and out all the time. What microphone should I get? And then we may find a totally different person that says, look, I just want to use my desktop, but I need maybe a little bit better camera. We haven't seen it, as you said, ubiquitous, where it's everyone who's working. It's like, I've got to have a kit to manage the whole thing. It tends to be very varied and unique in each situation.
I like it. All right, let's move on to our next story of the day. This comes to us from CE Pro. Did you get that, Mitchell? Actual steps you can take to improve your custom integration company culture. Read through the article. They cover a lot of really interesting things, and I want to pull out a couple of things out of here specifically. Amanda, one of the comments that's made in here is that it's really a fit, right? Your company culture is really a fit to all of your relationships, and figuring out where your culture is going to fit to make those relationships work. Is it easier to develop that as you're going, or is it something that you kind of have to set forth from the start?
It's almost like you're reading what we're going through right now with our company as we're growing and developing there, Matt.
I'm here for you.
Thanks. No, I appreciate it. No, I thought it was a really great article, you know, to think about, you know, some different things about how is your culture, and especially now, like after the last 2 years, how's your culture changed? How do you want your company going forward? I mean, I think it's always great to try to have that North Star of where it is that you want to go and what you want your company to look like and model after. But I also think that there need to be adjustments along the way. One of the things like that Panch and I, my husband and I, have really created a culture around is we've said, you know what, we want our company to be a learning company. So what that means is that because we see kind of what's coming forth, right, in the job market, and not as many young people kind of getting in. So we do, like, we're getting ready to gear up this summer. We've got probably like 5 or 6 kids that are like upper level high school, getting ready to graduate or just recently graduated, that they've come back a couple summers, and we teach them. And we've gotten quite a few kids that are interested in getting involved, but that's part of our culture. So like our senior technicians know that they aren't necessarily going to get slammed if things are maybe a little bit slower because they have one of those, that they're teaching kind of along the way. And that's just one of the things that we put forth. So when we hire even like senior level technicians, we're like, this is part of our company culture. Our clients know that this is part of our company culture. Hopefully, going forward, it sets us up where we're less, having issues with finding employees and things like that, because we're willing to train and we're willing to grow people up in the industry and expose them earlier. But you have to discuss it all the time. I think you have to talk about it all the time. And one of the things that I really liked pointing out in the article was when they talk about praising, too, out in public. And like, it doesn't necessarily have to be this big grandiose gesture kind of thing, but it can be those little things, and letting your team know how important they are and kind of posting those little things out. I've noticed even a lot more on a lot of companies with social media posting out there like, hey, let's introduce this new employee, or let's introduce that person, or give them a pat on the back or whatever for the job. And I think that says a lot, about your company culture and what it is that you're doing at your work. So,
yeah, I like that. Scott, one of the issues I took with this, it's a minor issue, was the key takeaway that your culture happens in public. And I've always been a believer, and some of the things I've read on company culture have always been that it starts in private, and if it's not there in private, it will not be there in public. And if you base your company culture on that external vision, it's not always going to reflect that way internally. Am I missing that?
No, I think your point is ultimately, is it real? Right? Is it internalized, or we're just doing it for show? And I think there's a fine line, right? Everyone is familiar with the sort of Disney training of how do you deliver a great Disney experience that they can do publicly, but is it really back there? We use the EOS traction system that I think a lot of people in the industry use. And it really focuses on what are your core values. If you are really clear about what those are and not just copying what everyone else says, and then you hire to those core values, you reward based on those core values, and and we do this more privately. I guess you got it, not out with customers, but every month we have our company meeting. We go through and people will give other people positives for doing things that match the core values. We've been doing it for 10 years, and I'll say the first few years we did it, it was hard to get people to speak up. Right. Most people didn't want to say anything, or it was the people that wanted to show off in front of the managers that did, and that kind of stuff. And now we've got it culturally, I think, ingrained, where people are talking about excellence, and we, maybe we made a mistake somewhere and we told the customer and made it right. So it was high integrity. But I think your point is a really fine one, which is it real? And people know if it's real if you treat people when others can't see it based upon the core values.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a real good point. Jason, and Amanda slightly stole my thunder on this one a touch, but all too often I feel like we only recognize the big wins, right? You hear it a lot in the commercial side of the industry, where that salesman gets all the props because he sold the big job, right? But the lowly techs who are wiring up the racks don't get any props at all, because all they did was wire up a rack and then haul that sucker up 14 flights of stairs because the elevator didn't work. Never experienced that before. How do we go about creating a culture to celebrate the minor wins, like the small things, without, making it so that, yeah, you showed up today, woohoo, we're going to get donuts?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody got a chance, but look back in the archives of CE Pro. I did an article a few months back on a company called Max Systems in Southern California, and he actually just sold the business to his operations manager, which the fact that was sold internally right there kind of just shows you that these were people who wanted to stay with the company. But one of their mantras was that they always have cash on hand. And when you say publicly, I guess you could say, when I say publicly, I'm thinking not one-on-one with the employee praise, but I'm praising that employee in front of everybody. And they would openly hand out, $100 rewards or whatever in front of everybody in the team, not the customers, obviously, but in front of the team. So I kind of see that as a public praising or public gesture, even though it's really kind of just internally within the team. But company culture comes in so many facets. There was an article that I did with Wow Media Systems up here in Rhode Island. And when COVID hit, they sat down, they brought in a financial consultant, and they sat down with every single person on their team and said, let's talk about your rent. Let's talk about your credit card. What is your credit card rates? They had a financial consultant work to help renegotiate their credit card debts for their employees, had them renegotiate their rent payments for them. And you talk about loyalty that's going to be bred forever from just a gesture like that to help these people with their personal finances. And you could go on and on with the fun things, all the fun elements that people try to bring to their company, whether it's a costume day or a mystery day where you're going to go out on an outing like, go-kart racing or something like that to have fun with the team. So it's a very important thing right now with the Great Resignation. That's for darn sure. Right. Everybody's losing people like crazy.
I was going to say that just brought to mind actually one of the things that I just started doing too with our team. We work with a hospital, one of our local hospitals, where they have the concierge service. So any of the like high-level doctors or surgeons or whatever that move in, they have a team that basically takes care of all the little things as they move in, so we're one of their preferred providers on there. So they'll call us like, oh, someone needs a TV installed or whatever. They negotiate and they deal with all that. So the surgeon or whatever doesn't have to. And I was kind of thinking about that and I was like, well, that's kind of a cool thing. And one of my guys on my team was mentioning how coming up, like he was trying to figure out like his girlfriend's birthday was coming up. And he wanted to get like fresh flowers or whatever for her. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, don't worry about it. I got it. When you come back home from work, they'll be sitting. I go, what do you want? And we picked out, or, he told me what colors or whatever he wanted. I got it all taken care of. So when he came home from his shift and went to go get in his vehicle, like it was all set and ready to go. He didn't have to stress about it or he didn't have to worry about it. And so it's like those little things that you can kind of do like to be able to help out, your team. Or do those like little extra praises. Those I think go a long way when you talk about culture and what you can do to help your employees, so they could focus on the job that they need to do at hand out in the field.
It always doesn't have to be financial. You're right, Amanda. I worked for a contractor and it was 5 people, husband and wife, and we got fresh baked chocolate chip cookies. We got 12 packs of beer, those sorts of things that when you're younger are super valuable. That was my dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, by the way.
It seems unsafe.
Beer and cookies.
Yeah. Those things were great,
I love it. All right, let's hit our last story of the day. This comes to us from Residential Systems. The inaugural Audio Advice live event is going to be held in August the 19th through the 21st. They're going to have 50 plus experience rooms at the downtown Sheraton there in Raleigh, where you'll get to experience a boatload of new gear, learn from industry pros, and get downright inspired. Scott, I'm really glad that you're here for this one because we can talk about it and we can read the article about it, but it's not the same. Tell us a little bit about why you guys are doing this and why you're doing it to the level you are. Most people do an initial event and they might do 5 rooms. You're doing 50.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We have run, Audio Advice within sort of the Southeast from Washington, D.C. down through Florida and sort of through the middle of the country has got one of the largest in both our stores, audio and theater experience centers. And we've been running Music Matters events for about 2 decades. And in the past 5 years, they've been totally standing room only. And we run them. We've added hours. We've done everything we could do. And we have large showrooms and they're totally packed. And as our e-commerce business has grown nationwide, we've reached a lot more people, so we've got 135,000 enthusiasts that follow us on YouTube and, 65,000 on Facebook. We've got a lot of people and, a very large number that follow our newsletter each week. And ultimately, we were thinking about, we would love to have an opportunity to allow people to come in and hear all sorts of things like you do at Expona, but in a totally different part of the country. And that meant making it much bigger than Audio Advice. And we actually considered helping launch it without the Audio Advice name. And we ultimately concluded to just make it Audio Advice Live. But there'll be brands that every major brand that you can imagine is there, BMW, Klipsch, Class A, Sonos Faber, Macintosh, everyone that's a big name has already committed, and there's more coming. So there'll be like a whole gallery of turntables, a whole gallery of headphones. There'll be a can jam area, then lots of audio systems. But the thing that makes it particularly different is that it has home theater as well. And most events have not been able to pull this off because it's very expensive to take out rooms in a hotel and build theaters in the room. But we ultimately decided, look, we want consumers, and so this is a consumer-driven event, to be able to come and experience as many things as they possibly could to get them fired up about the space. And we're reaching out pretty far beyond, if you know a lot about the Audio Advice sort of following, we reach a lot of millennials that are not traditional audiophiles. And so we're all about extending the reach of the business. Anyways, that's what we're doing. And we literally have taken the entire Sheraton Convention Center Hotel. So it's going to be a big event. A lot of big names have already committed to come to be on panels, So Gene from Audioholics is coming. Stereophile is going to be there. Sound and Vision will be there. So there'll be these really cool panels packed with influencers and people that you might not expect that don't go to these normal events from sort of big name businesses, that there'll be real neat panels going on and stuff like that. So,
yeah, that's fantastic. Jason, this is something that you hear talked about often, that you need to get people in to experience it, to fully understand it. Obviously, Audio Advice is doing that. What holds back integrators from doing this more often? Again, maybe not to the scale, but in some scale.
Yeah, I think, Scott's got a unique business because they have that following, that online business that they do, and they have such a broad reach. Most integrators remember the typical integrator is doing 35 to 50 projects a year. Mm-hmm. It's a very small number of customers that they are touching to be able to do something at this scale. So I have a question for Scott, though. So are all the vendors who are coming, are they doing deals? Is that part of this, or is it really just come experience the audio and the home theater level, but it isn't necessarily come here and you're going to get a deal on these speakers?
No, this is about come experience our theater, come experience the new speakers we're launching. So there'll be a lot of people launching new products and things like that, but it's not a sort of come and do a deal kind of thing. It's very much, you know what, I've been thinking about getting into audio, or I've been learning about turntables. Boy, I could go to this event and see all of them and learn a lot and hear from industry experts. Or I'm thinking about building a home theater, and all the sort of major players that talk about home theater design and what's happening with new Dolby upmixing, all of that will be there. So that's the real focus. And again, there'll be brands that Audio Advice sells and brands that Audio Advice doesn't sell. It's literally intended to be a large event available. There'll be people coming from all across the country. There's already people signed up that are, but I suspect sort of from the, East Coast down through Florida kind of thing, it will be a lot of people from that area that just don't have a show of this size to go see everything all at once. And going back, Matt, to your question for Jason, it's extremely expensive to pull off. So, I mean, honestly, so even our Music Matters events, we basically had to stop selling a week before, right? You imagine you're working months before to coordinate everything. A week before the showroom starts to shut down, and you're setting everything up, and then vendors have to come in, and we do it from one. But you can imagine we started this 6 months in advance, coordinating the pieces of the puzzle, negotiating, and it is a massive undertaking. And so to Jason's point, you have to be a certain scale to get. We weren't that scale 5-10 years ago. We couldn't have done anything like this.
Right.
So.
Amanda, is there a way that smaller integrators can leverage this type of thing? Again, not necessarily to the scale. What Scott and his team are doing is fantastic. But we found a way to do lunch and learns with, architects and designers. Is there a way to do something to get your clients and their friends in, even to one of your clients' homes, to experience stuff? Because that's always the big holdback is, I don't think it's worth it. I've never seen it.
Yeah. Well, we actually do that a lot. And it's actually the perfect time of year because we're getting ready in our market, in our area. We're a little bit smaller than what Scott obviously is, and where we're at logistically can do it, but we're doing Parade of Homes in our area. So the next 3 weekends, one of our parts of our contract with our Parade of Homes is we do some like special little things or whatever for that homeowner if they allow us to, work on their home in the parade. But part of that contract is that we get to work at it. So for the next 3 weekends, I will be working nonstop at Parade of Homes to be able to showcase that and demo, because I think technology is one of those things that it has to be demoed, right? Like you're not going to walk in, like when you look at a new countertop, oh, who manufactured or who made that? Like you have to be able to explain the lighting system or the shade system. You have to really make sure that like the speakers are playing properly and, everything, like the movie is set up right in the space. And maybe the builder can't do that because they're too busy, doing their other things. And, you've all seen where they just kind of quick flip everything on and then nobody's there explaining it. So we do that. So I will be the next 3 weeks at that. And then part of our culture, we have a lot of clients that we actually do kind of more just like high-end events at their homes if they're willing to kind of do it, where one time we'll kind of like do a big showcase at it. We'll bring in clients, other builders, other architects, other clients that we work with and things like that. And we do a full demo. We'll bring in, food, we cater it in. We do a big event. It's kind of like an open house. And you can do it. It's costly. It's not near the cost of what Scott has, but it is an investment. It's an investment of time. But every single time that we've done that, we've gotten a huge return on that, when people can see it and they can experience it. So it's worth it, but it takes the planning for sure.
So Scott, one more question for you is you mentioned the audio and the home theater. Or is it going to broaden are you going to have demos for voice control or for lighting or any of these other categories?
Great question. We debated that. We ultimately decided this year we're probably not going to do smart home in it. We wanted to stay focused on audio and home theater. It would not surprise me if in future years we do bring that in. It's interesting related to that question and what Amanda was saying. Part of our focus is just to drive awareness and more people doing it, whether they buy from us or someone else. And so, to Amanda's point, like for smaller integrators, we were a smaller integrator 20 years ago. There will be plenty of people that come to this event that experience things that we want them to go back to that integrator and buy from that integrator and not from Audio Advice or someone else. And we do this on the phone too. We have a pretty big e-commerce business and people call us and say, oh, I just went and checked this out at some store and I listened to these new speakers and I see you've got them, sell them. And we say, look, we sell at the same price as everyone else. We don't discount. We don't cheat on taxes. So you're still going to pay the taxes. If you went and demoed and spent a bunch of time with that local store, go buy from that local store. And I think if the industry focuses on doing that at the big events, the small events, everything else, we all win is my theory.
It's the raising tide, right? Or rising tide, not
That's
rising tide. All right, let's leave it there. Thank you all for joining us. Scott, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Audio Advice, sign up for Audio Advice Live, where can they do that?
If you go to live.audioadvice.com, so live.audioadvice.com, you'll see everything about it, the panels, the registration, everything else.
Awesome, thank you. Amanda, if people want to connect with you, learn more about True Media Home, where can they do that?
You can go to truemediahome.com as our website or look True Media Home up on any social media platform, and we are there.
Including TikTok. She's on TikTok. People.
Including TikTok. I don't dance though, Matt.
That's fine. That's fine. Jason, if people want to connect with you, learn more about CE Pro, where can they do that?
They can go to cepro.com and they can follow me on Twitter at JasonW. And let me put in one more thing for Scott. I don't think he actually mentioned it's August 19th through 21st. I don't think the date was ever mentioned in,
we talked about it
in
off
the
the
conversation.
Top.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah, it's actually funny you should say that. It's designed to be that weekend in the hotel because Ziggy Marley's going to be in town. There's going to be comedian. There's a whole set of things happening in downtown Raleigh that make it where someone could go, I'm going to go there for like a date kind of thing and get the hotel at the Sheraton and be there Friday through Sunday and go to concerts and all sorts of fun stuff. So
Scott's marketing is on point. He knows what's up. All right. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott and most other social channels. Unfortunately, not on TikTok. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.